Greetings, everyone. My name is Davina Liggins, and I have come today to talk to you about iron deficiency anemia. This is a disorder that I myself am dealing with, and I recently had an episode with iron deficiency anemia the other week and had to get some treatment. And so I wanted to come on and talk about it because this is near and dear to my heart, and I'm actively in the trenches um, attempting to reverse this and get everything under control. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it is because during that time, I was talking to a young lady who said that she had low iron levels, and she mentioned that she was always cold. And I said to her, "Oh, the symptoms of iron deficiency anemia can get really bad, and you want to get on top of that. Don't play with it." And I think the seriousness of iron deficiency anemia oftentimes is overlooked until you're in moments of crises. And I've been in moments of crises. So that's why I am here talking about it, because I want everybody to know how serious this is. And not only that, but things that we can do to try on our part um, to try to mitigate this, manage this until you can identify what the root cause is and work on that. So that goes along with um, the principles of healing made whole. And so the whole point of Healing Made Whole, the company that I started, is to provide knowledge and understanding about how the body works, the interplay between our lifestyle and whether that's diet, exercise, sunlight, just the interplay between all of those things, lifestyle and the biochemistry of our body, and how that greatly impacts symptoms, disorders, and diseases. And if we make the right choices, we can start to bring about longevity, health, and balance in the body. So that's the principle, one of the core principles of Healing Made Whole. And this is what I tried to do. So let's get on with um, iron deficiency anemia. So this video might be a little long because I'm going to take my time in going through this. Um, and so iron is an essential mineral or metal, I should say, um, that must be consumed in the diet. So it's a metal, and it is tightly regulated during absorption in the small intestine. Now, what's interesting about this metal, this iron, is that um, it cannot be excreted from the body. So once it is consumed and integrated in the body, it's the only way you can remove it is by blood loss. So it's tightly regulated at the absorption level in the small intestine. Because iron overload, that is too higher levels of iron, is very toxic to the body, and we want to avoid that. And it is possible, I just wanted to throw out as a little trivia that it is even possible to have too much iron in the body and anemia all at the same time. And that just has to do with the availability of the iron. So you have iron, plenty of iron stored in the body, but if you can't access it, it's going to manifest or look like anemia. Okay, so there are about 4 to 5 million cases or incidences of iron deficiency anemia in the US per year. This is a very common um, disorder. And so if you're dealing with it, don't worry. There are plenty of us out here who are. You're not in the trenches alone. So here's what iron is all about. So iron, about 75% of it goes to hemoglobin, the heme portion of the hemoglobin molecule that is critical for red blood cell formation. And if you have too lower levels of iron, you can lead to anemia. So that's low levels of iron leading to anemia. In iron deficiency, well, rather, iron is also stored, about 10 to 20% of it is stored as ferritin, or in the complex with ferritin in the liver, the spleen, and the bone marrow. It can be in complex with myoglobin, which is also in the muscle tissue. And about 5 to 15% of the iron is used for other functions. And today we're going to focus on the anemia, what happens when iron gets so low that one of the symptoms is anemia. So, iron deficiency anemia, particularly, as I stated, iron is required to form heme, and heme is a part of the hemoglobin. And iron binds oxygen in the red blood cells in this complex, in this hemoglobin complex, and it is essential to make red blood cells. So, without iron, or low levels of iron leads to the prevention of the formation of red blood cells and thus anemia. So anemia is a symptom of iron deficiency. You can have other you can have iron deficiency and not have anemia. I want to make that clear. Um, and some of the common causes of iron deficiency anemia is blood loss, and this can come about uh, as a result of several things like bleeding in the GI tract, heavy periods for women, parasites, even certain autoimmune diseases in the intestine, many other causes for blood loss, other than what I just indicated here. Low iron in the diet. So we lose about 1 to 2 milligrams of iron every day as a result of turnover of red blood cells and a little bit that can come out in the sweat. But over time, if this iron, this little bit of loss that all of us go through, if it's not repaired or restored, then over time anemia can develop. And also poor iron absorption can also lead to it. So you may be having sufficient levels of iron in your diet, but if you can't absorb it properly, you're going to end up with iron deficiency, which may then end up leading to iron deficiency anemia. High risk populations include children because of their growth spurts, and fast growth spurts without an increase or sufficient, I should say, sufficient levels of iron to then make more red blood cells to help facilitate that growth spurt, the child can end up with anemia. Women of childbearing age, again, due to menstruation, women lose blood every single month. And if you have heavy periods, then that will exacerbate this whole process. And that would need to be looked into as well, because it could be fibroids or other issues that are leading to that. Pregnant women also can develop iron deficiency anemia because the growth of the fetus, and so there's just extra demand on the body for the need for red blood cells. And if you don't have a sufficient level of iron to allow that to occur, the pregnant woman could end up with iron deficiency anemia. So here are the recommended daily iron requirements, or what is suggested for males 19 and older. Is 8 milligrams of iron a day. Women 19 to 50, again, this is the childbearing uh, age, is 18 milligrams of iron a day. Women who are 50 plus, it goes down to 8 milligrams of iron a day. Now, that is because, again, they're not menstruating, so the loss of blood is pretty much gone as long as everything else is intact. So the need for iron decreases. Pregnant women need much higher levels of iron, as I explained, and lactating women, there's a recommendation of slightly lower levels of 9 to 10 milligrams of iron per day. So let's keep moving. The symptoms of iron deficiency anemia. If you have iron deficiency anemia, you know these symptoms all too well. You know how severe they can get. You know how mild they can be. Um, and I'll just name a few of them here, but they're listed here for your awareness, like chronic fatigue, weakness, shortness of breath, dizziness, rapid or irregular heartbeat, difficulty swallowing, ringing in the ears, poor sleep, confusion, memory loss, numbness, irritability, hair loss, feeling cold, sore tongue, loss of sex drive, inability to think clearly, lightheadedness, restless legs syndrome, general feeling of illness, pale skin, pica, that's like eating ice or clay or dirt or anything like that, increased risk of heart failure and stroke. Um, and I would like to say that a lot of these symptoms on this list I have had, and they have ranged from different levels of severity. Um, and they have gone away or lessened in their severity at different rates. As my iron levels have fluctuated, I've noticed different symptoms popping up at different times and lasting for different times. So I say all this to say is pay attention to your body, know the signs and symptoms. Don't wait until you're in crisis. You know, you can't stand up. You're so dizzy that you're on the floor, and you get to the hospital and your hemoglobin levels are so low that you need blood transfusion, etc. Try not to wait to that. Learn your body as you go along with managing this. Now, I want to get to food and iron absorption. There are two different types of iron that can does exist. There's non-heme and then there's heme iron. Now, the non-heme iron has low bioavailability, and what I mean by that is just how well it can be absorbed in the body. So it's low bioavailability for non-heme iron, but heme iron is much higher. The percentage of it that can be absorbed is much, much higher with heme iron. Now, non-heme iron is found in non-animal sources like green leafy vegetables, nuts, and beans. Heme iron is found in animal sources. Now, when we talk about the inhibitors of iron absorption, this is very important because remember, this is where the body regulates. It's very tightly regulated, and in terms of how iron gets in the body is at the absorption level. So inhibitors of iron absorption include calcium, that's milk and dairy. Now, calcium inhibits both non-heme and heme. So if you are taking a calcium supplement or you're eating or drinking a large amount of cheese and or big glass of milk and you're doing this every time you take your iron supplement or you're eating your meat with these high calcium foods, you can seriously be blocking the iron. So you're thinking you're getting enough iron in your diet, but if you're mixing it with these inhibitors, um, you're not getting the amount of iron that you think. Eggs can block non-heme iron. It does not block heme iron. The rest of these do not block heme iron. So there's eggs, there's tannins in tea, coffee, chocolate, and walnuts. There are phytates that are present in grains, oats, wheats, rye, barley, millet, beans, lentils, and rice. The phenols that are present in grapes can inhibit iron absorption. Iron absorption can be increased. This is non-heme iron. So if you pair non-heme iron with heme iron, you can get higher absorption of the non-heme iron. And I just want to say that even though heme iron has higher bioavailability, it is my understanding that most of the iron that we receive in our diet comes from non-heme sources. and about 60%, and about 40% comes from heme sources. And that could just be due because, well, we may eat less meat than we do fruits and vegetables. So just keep in mind that non-heme sources are important. They are valued. It's just not from the heme iron. In addition to increased absorption, there's vitamin C, as you know, like bell peppers, broccoli, and oranges has high levels of vitamin C and beta carotene. This is the orange or yellow pigment that's found in fruits and vegetables. It's very high in carrots, apricots, broccoli, cilantro, kale that is cooked. So try to pair your foods when you and get intentional about eating an iron-rich diet to try to dig yourself out of that hole of iron deficiency. Um, you need to be aware of these kinds of things so you can actually pair your foods properly. So, iron deficiency anemia, this is just some high level points that I can give you based on my experience, my well, my experience and my reading and understanding of how the foods um, impact absorption. So, of course, avoid eating iron rich foods and supplements that inhibit iron absorption. One key thing that, especially for vegans and vegetarians, or if one of your biggest sources of iron is in beans and lentils, what you want to do is soak your beans and your nuts and your seeds to reduce the phytates in there. Also, pressure cooking reduces phytates, so this may be a way in which you can help increase your iron absorption. You want to eat non-heme rich foods with foods that contain heme iron, vitamin C, and beta carotene rich foods. So, for example, if you're eating green leafy vegetables, and this is, one of your big sources of iron, you want to make sure you're pairing that. For example, if you eat meat, with quality, healthy meat, that heme iron in that meat will help improve or increase the absorption of that non-heme iron in those green leafy vegetables. Even sprinkling or using like lemon juice or eating oranges in your salad, um, and other things to help increase that absorption of iron from the non-heme sources. And also ask your doctor if iron supplementation is right for you. I cannot recommend that. Your doctor should do that for you, and you should work closely with them. You just don't want to start supplementing with iron without realizing or knowing that that is appropriate. Because again, iron overload is toxic. And I'll give you an example. There's a disease where people have high levels of iron. There is a genetic mutation that they have that inhibits, it's like a peptide in the body that blocks or regulates iron absorption. And they lose that ability um, with this genetic mutation. So they end up with iron overload. So it just absorb large amounts of iron from their diet that's kind of goes uncontrolled. And as a result, on a regular basis, they have to give blood to offload that iron. So again, iron is not excreted from the kidneys or anything like that. It's really held tightly within the body. And so you want to be careful. That's why I say don't supplement unless you talk to your doctor. And you should ask your doctor about the amount and the frequency of the iron that you should be taking, and also ask them about heme versus non-heme iron supplements. This is very important because there could be a reason why they would want you to do one or the other. But I want you to know that heme supplements are available and without prescription. However, the cost is much more um, than non-heme iron. Um, so just be aware of that. Also, I've seen people, and I do myself, I also take beef liver supplements, and also as a source of iron in my diet. I eat some meat. I put that back in my diet. And so that may be something that you may want to consider if you're vegan or vegetarian, like how I was. You may want to introduce it for a period of time to see if that can help you to get over the hump. And then with your doctor, you can figure out how to start to remove meat from your diet again. But that's something that you would have to consider and work out long term. Um, and I want to advise everyone, this is something that I have fallen prey to, and that is, do not manage the iron deficiency, your iron deficiency anemia based on your symptoms. This is a big no-no, because with anemia, what happens is as time goes on, your levels of your hemoglobin levels and your blood levels are dropping and dropping and dropping. And yeah, you start feeling more tired, you start feeling more fatigued, maybe more confused, a little bit, like can't get your thoughts together, but you start to adjust to all of this. And like I said, as time goes on, you're dropping and dropping and dropping, but you don't really realize it's subtle little changes. And if you're not paying attention, you can end up in crisis. So do not manage this by your symptoms. No, you need blood tests to know where you are, and you should be working out this plan with your doctor. I started doing this with my hematologist some time back, and we were getting on a track, but it wasn't quite working because then something else happened. I couldn't swallow the pills properly, and then I got all messed up. Now I'm trying to get myself back together. So anyway, I'm telling you facts, and I'm telling you my own personal experience with this, because I've if I went through it, there's no reason you have to go through it if I can tell you, hey, be careful about this. So that's the point of, of all of this here. So identify the root cause of the iron deficiency and develop a plan to resolve it. So if it's like heavy periods, if it's bleeding in the intestine somewhere, an ulcer in the stomach, or some other kind of disease, complication, disorder, whatever it could be, find out what that is. Don't just start taking iron. Well, you have to do what you have to do. But what I'm saying is, don't just start treating the symptoms of what's going on. Figure out the root cause. Develop a dietary plan to increase iron levels. Be intentional about food pairing. Remember what we just talked about, the inhibitory foods and those that increase iron absorption. Write the plan and track progress. I'm really big on journals, and having journals and keeping track of what is going on, how you're pairing your food, so you know over time, did that work? Did it not work? Work with your doctor to obtain frequent blood tests to determine whether your plan is working. This is so important. And lately, the last few months, I have not been good at this. Like I said, for a while that I was just going by how I felt. Well, that's not good enough. You need to know what the numbers are. Are they going up? Are they staying the same? Or are they going down? And then you and your doctor together can work out a plan on how to get things moving in the right direction. And hopefully over time, you can start to reduce your iron supplementation. Again, that would be important to avoid iron overload once you start getting into those normal levels and your doctor says that your levels are sufficient, and you can start to make changes. Sometimes iron infusion and blood transfusions are used to treat iron deficiency anemia. Of course, you don't want to be relying on blood transfusions for the rest of your life as a management uh, protocol for the iron deficiency anemia. There's too many risks associated with that long term. The best thing, get to the root cause, solve it, supplement with iron as you can under your doctor's supervision, get your diet together as best you can, and try to try to stay from moments of crises. So I want to say in conclusion that iron deficiency anemia is like the trunk of the tree. And then with all its many branches, because iron deficiency anemia within itself is a disorder, or iron deficiency within itself is a disorder, and then one of the symptoms that can come off of it is anemia, which has its own branches associated of symptoms like shortness of breath, fatigue, difficulty swallowing, hair loss, stroke, heart failure at the most extreme levels. Um, it has its own branches of symptoms. But at the root cause, that's what we want to get at the root. Is it blood loss, like heavy periods, ulcers, disease? Is it iron malabsorption? Is there a problem with absorbing iron from the small intestine? What is it that is leading to iron deficiency anemia that is then propagating itself into or an iron deficiency that is then leading into anemia? So I want to encourage everyone to take the time to find out the root cause and correct it, and be patient with yourself. It takes time to figure out what works for you. And that's something that I am working on with myself, and not beating myself up, and just learning as I go what works for me, what doesn't work for me, what iron supplement causes intestinal upset and what doesn't, and such. So yeah, that's it. So be careful out there with this iron deficiency anemia. And as time goes on, I'll be sharing some of my experiences moving forward. But I at least wanted to put that out there, that there are things that you can do to help yourself as you and your doctor try to work out the best plan to resolve this disorder. So you all be blessed. Take good care, and I will see you the next time.